Hello everyone. Today we are back with the topics of current affairs with regard to environment. Okay. So first we'll see what topics we'll be covering today, and then we'll get into the details of the topic. Okay. Okay. So the first topic would be the Climate Change Performance Index 2023. Then we'll talk about the Stockholm plus 50. Then the UNEP. Then the two reports of UNEP, that is Emission Gap Report 2022 and Adaptation Gap Report 2022. Then we'll move on to the financing initiatives, that is climate change financing initiatives in India. And we'll also talk about the carbon capture utilization and storage policy, which was introduced by Niti Aayog recently. Then we'll talk about climate tipping points and also the World Meteorological Organization. Also, the State of Climate Services report, which is published by WMO. Then also the Global Carbon Budget 2022. Then we'll also see a few more topics. That is the Convention on Biodiversity. We'll also talk about the COP 15 of the Convention of Biodiversity. Then the most important one, that is Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework and UN Decade of Ecosystem Restoration, and also National Mission for Clean Ganga along with Namami Gange program. And the last one will be Earth Ganga. Okay, so these would be the topics we'll be discussing today. So we'll move on to the first topic, which is Climate Change Performance Index 2023. So first, we must know who publishes this report. Okay, UPSC has a common tendency to ask what the report is published by who. Okay, so it is published by German Watch, the New Climate Institute, and the Climate Action Network. And it has started publishing since 2005. Clear? So that is Climate Change Performance Index. And what do they do? Yes, as the name suggests, it actually monitors the performance with regard to climate change. That is what the world is doing in order to reduce the impact of climate change. So the performance is measured, and it is measured across 59 countries and the European Union. Okay. And why these countries are important? Because these countries contribute more than 92% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. So you must remember that 92% of the global greenhouse gas emission is contributed by these 59 countries and the European Union. And they are the members of who? The Climate Change Performance Index. Okay. And on what basis do they classify this or rank the countries? Yes, it looks into 4 categories. Obviously, one would be what? The greenhouse gas emissions. Okay, it has the highest weightage of 40%. Apart from greenhouse gas emission, they also focus on renewable energy, energy use, and climate policy. So the 4 categories across 14 indicators are greenhouse gas emission, renewable energy use, and climate policy. Okay, now we'll see India's performance. So India has been ranked 8th out of 63 countries. So this is 2 spots higher from the last time ranking. Okay, so India is 8th. And if I'm saying 8th, it is among the top 5 countries. Why? Because the first 3 spots remain vacant, because there's no country which has outperformed the best performer in the top 3 spots. So the ranking starts from 4. So that is why India is the India is among the top 5 countries. Okay. And also it is one of the best countries in the G20 indicators, G20 countries. Okay. And it is best among all large economies. And India is the best performer. That is, India's rating is the best in greenhouse gas emissions and energy use categories. But with regard to climate policy and renewable energy, we still need improvement. Okay. And according to this report, it also says that India is on track to meet the 2030 emission targets, but we are off track in terms of renewable energy. Okay. So we must focus more on what the renewable energy pathway. Clear? So that is Climate Change Performance Index. So we must know who publishes the report. That is German Watch Foundation, New Climate Institute, and Climate Action Network. Along with that, we know that there are 59 countries plus EU who are the greatest greenhouse gas emitters. That is more than 92%. Now also we must know about the India's performance. It is one of the best and 8 of the 63 nations. Clear? Okay, so that is climate change performance index. Okay, now we'll move on to the next important topic, that is Stockholm plus 50. So what is Stockholm plus 50? Have you heard about the Stockholm Conference of 1972? Yes, we'll look into that in detail. But yes, so the first thing you must know about Stockholm plus 50 is it is the 50th year of the Stockholm Conference, which happened in 1972. Okay, and this year's theme is a healthy planet for the prosperity of all, our responsibility and our opportunity. Here, and it is actually 2022 was celebrated as the 50th year. Okay, so why is this 50 years important? Because it is the 50th year as Stockholm Conference, as I've already told. So we'll see first what is the Stockholm Conference of 1972. Okay, why is it important? Because this was the first time all countries came together with what the aim of conserving the nature, that is with regard to environmental concerns and natural resources for conservation of these. This was the first time that countries come together. Okay, so that is the significance of the Stockholm Conference, and it was also called the Swedish initiative since it happened in Sweden for the first time. Okay, and the basic theme was only one Earth. Okay, so that was the theme, and the significance is that it started the contemporary environmental era. So till then, whatever happened, nobody did consider about the environmental consequences. But since the Stockholm Conference, environmental era started. Clear? And what were the three things that came out of this conference? What are the three dimensions? Yes, countries agreed to each other that they are not going to harm the environment. That is, if I'm a country, like if I'm India and there's our neighboring China, so China cannot come and attack any of the environmental regions or biodiverse rich regions. So that was agreed upon in this Stockholm Conference. Okay, and also an action plan was launched in order to study what the threat of the Earth's environment. Okay, and you must also know that 20 years since this conference was the Rio Earth Summit of the 1992. Okay, and one of the major outcomes of this conference is the formation of the body, United Nations Environment Program. Okay, so all of you would have heard of UNEP. Just remember, it was what formed during the Stockholm Conference of 1972. Here, so this year we are celebrating. 2022 was the 50th year of Stockholm Conference. So this is important. Okay, especially in children's point of view. Okay, so as we've already told, UNEP was formed as an outcome of this Stockholm Conference. UNEP is also important this year. Okay, so we'll look into UNEP. So yeah, I already told it is celebrating 50th year anniversary in 2022. Yes, and it was launched during this UN conference on the human environment. So that is the name of Stockholm Conference. Okay, it is the same thing. Okay, and why was it formed? It was formed to monitor the state of the environment information policy, and coordinate responses. So the whole world needed policy framework to coordinate in order to tackle the consequences that is happening on the environment, like all the impacts like climate change, global warming, whatever it is, people had to come together. So, and countries had to form policies. So this was the basis why UNEP was formed. Yeah. So when you're talking about that, we must also know about the major reports published by UNEP. So UPSC has a very common trend of asking the reports and who published it. So you must know about it. Okay. So we have the emission gap report, the adaptation gap report, global environmental outlook, frontiers, and invest into healthy planet. These are the major reports published by who? UNEP. So we have the emission gap report, adaptation gap report, global environmental outlook, frontiers, and invest into healthy planet. Okay. And what are the basic aims of major campaigns of UNEP? There is a campaign called Beach Pollution, then UN 75, World Environmental Day, it falls on June 5th and it is celebrated every year, and Wild for Life. So these are the basic themes of what campaigns of UNEP. And one more thing, you must remember, beach pollution, like in 2018, the World Environmental Day theme was beach plastic pollution. Yeah. So that is one thing you can use it during mains or something. And also one more thing you must remember, this year's theme is again what? Only one Earth. So this year, 2022, June 5th, the focus was on #only one Earth. Yeah. Okay. Now, what we must look into UNEP was the key milestones and timeline. So in 1973, UNEP opened its headquarters in Kenyatta International Convention Center. Again in 1973, the Marpol Convention. So what is Marpol? It is basically to prevent what? Pollution from ships. Okay, it is a convention which was organized in order to prevent pollution from ships. So that is the Marpol Convention. It was under the UNEP. It was launched under UNEP. Okay. Then in 1974, the World Environment Day was started with the target of what? With the theme Only One Earth. So I've already told this year also the theme is Only One Earth. Okay. And in 1976, again, there was another treaty called Barcelona Convention. And that the basic aim of Barcelona Convention was what? To protect the Mediterranean Sea against pollution. Okay. So remember, where is Barcelona situated? On the banks of Mediterranean Sea. So you can connect it like that. So Barcelona Convention is related to Mediterranean Sea protection, and it comes under UNEP. Okay. And in 1979, the famous Bonn Convention was signed, and it is with regard to what? Convention on Migratory Species. Okay. That is Convention on Migratory Species is under UNEP, and it is commonly called what? The Bonn Convention. Okay. So these were the key milestones which happened with regard to UNEP. Then we must also know what? The secretariats with UNEP hosts. That is all the bodies which come under UNEP. So there are so many bodies which whose is UNEP. That is the secretariat is there. The first one is the Convention on Biological Diversity. That is the CBD. Then we have what? The CITES Agreement. That is Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora. We've seen it in the last class, both sides. Then we have the Minamata Convention on Mercury. So it's basically with regard to mercury pollution. That is in order to prevent the mercury pollution in water. So that is Minamata Convention. Then we have the Basel, Rotterdam and Stockholm Convention. This is with regard to what? The pollutants. That is persisting. Stockholm Convention is with regard to persisting organic pollutant. Then Basel and Rotterdam is with regard to harmful, the transportation of harmful pollutants. So these are also hosted by whom? The UNEP. Then we have the Convention on Migratory Species, as I've already mentioned earlier. Then the Carpathian Convention with regard to conservation of the Carpathian Mountains in the Europe, and the Vienna Convention for the protection of ozone layer and the Montreal Protocol. So we have seen these conventions, that is Vienna Convention and the Montreal Protocol during when we looked into the ozone layer depletion topic, right? Then we have what? The Bamako Convention. So what is Bamako Convention? It is with regard to the prohibition of transfer of what? Nuclear waste, nuclear and hazardous waste, radioactive waste into Africa. Okay, so Bamako Convention is with regard to what? Prohibition of transportation or import of hazardous and radioactive waste into Africa. Okay, then we have the Tehran Convention. So Tehran Convention is with regard to protection of marine species in Caspian Sea. Okay, Tehran Convention. So these are the important conventions hosted by the UNEP. Clear? Okay. So that is about UNEP. Now we'll see about the two important reports of UNEP, that is the emission gap report and the adaptation gap report. So first we'll see the emission gap report. So what is emission gap report? Okay, it is published by UNEP every year. And what does it measure? It measures the emission gap. So what is meant by emission gap? Yes, we are trying to reduce what? The GHG emission, that is greenhouse gas emissions, right? So the gap, that is, we have a target of limiting the global warming below 2 degrees Celsius, and that's a target of greenhouse gas emission, which has to be kept below, right? So the gap which we have in order to achieve this, right? That is what the emission gap. Okay, how much less emission should be done in order to reduce this gap? Okay, so actually we are emitting more now, more than the required quantity. And if we are if we continue to do so, what will happen? This global warming would exceed 2 degrees Celsius. So this gap is addressed by who? Is measured by the emission gap studied by. And according to this report, we have to reduce at least by GHG emissions by 30%. If we have to keep the global temperature well below 2 degrees Celsius, and by 45% if we have to keep the global temperature at 1.5 degrees Celsius. Okay, so as of now, we are what? Emitting more than 30 or 45%, right? The greenhouse gases. Okay. Now, we must also know that India is one of the greatest contributor to greenhouse gas. India is the third largest greenhouse gas emitter behind China and the US. But India's per capita emission is much below these countries. Okay. And you must also understand that it is not there is a rich-poor divide. What do you mean by rich-poor divide? That is, the bottom 50% contribute to the top 12%. Just 12% of the greenhouse gas emission. And the top 1% contribute to what? The 17% greenhouse gas. Just imagine, only the top echelon of people, that is 1% of the people, contribute to what? 17% of the greenhouse gas emission. And the 50% in the bottom contributes to just 12% of the greenhouse gas emission. Okay, so that is the rich-poor divide in the emission. So that is also a division which indicates a division between what? The developed and the developing countries and underdeveloped countries. Okay, so that is the emission gap report. Now we have the adaptation gap report. This is also published by who? The UNEP, that is United Nations Environmental Program. Okay, so why is this published? It is adaptation gap report is the gap in the adaptation, that is adaptation, planning, financing, and implementation, in order to overcome the threats to climate change, right? Especially in the vulnerable countries. How much they are adapting, that gap is measured in the adaptation gap report. Okay, so we must understand that most of the countries have adaptation plans, but the problem is of the finance. Okay, if you're taking 8 out of 10 countries, all of them have a national adaptation planning instruments, but they don't have enough funding mechanism. For example, since 2009 Copenhagen Summit of the COP of UNFCCC, we have started a climate fund of $100 billion per year. At least we have the developed countries and developing countries should contribute. Okay, everybody pledged that we'll contribute it. But this year, like 2020, if you're considering, there was a shortage of $17 billion. Right. So we are asking everybody to contribute at least $400 billion, but still that is also not being met. There is a gap in funding. Most of the countries have adaptation, planning and adaptation plans, but they don't have the financing mechanism. That is what is said in the adaptation gap report, and it is and it is published by the UN. Yeah. Okay. So these are the 2 important reports by the UN. Now we look into what India is doing in order to achieve its climate financing. Okay. So first one is we have a National Adaptation Fund for Climate Change. So what is this National Adaptation Fund for Climate Change? Yes, we established this fund in 2050, and this is basically what aim to fund the adaptation to climate change, especially in the states and union territories which are vulnerable to the adverse effects of climate change. So which would be those states? We have the coastal region, which is facing what? Coastal erosion, sea level rise, right? Then we have extreme conditions like what? Frequent cloudbursts and floods in states such as Uttarakhand, right? Then we have what? The heat wave conditions, especially in Ahmedabad, Gujarat region, in the Central Indian region. Okay, so all these states would have what? Funding. So in order to adapt to these extreme climatic conditions, we have the National Adaptation Fund for Climate Change, and it was established in 2015. Okay, now we have the National Clean Energy Fund. What would this be for? Yes, as the name suggests, it would be for funding the clean energy mechanisms. Okay, so that India can promote the clean energy. Okay, and how is this fund? How is the funding mechanism? Yes, it is through carbon tax on the coal. Like there is a particular tax which is levied while coal is being taken, especially for thermal and other industrial purpose, thermal energy and other industrial purposes. That tax would be what converted into clean energy fund. So it will act as a funding mechanism. Okay. Now you must also know that this is governed by a ministerial group, and it is chaired by a finance secretary. Okay. The finance secretary chairs this National Clean Energy Funds interministerial group. Okay. And whatever fund they are receiving would be what? Used for what? The research and development. Okay. So whatever technological innovations are needed for the research of those technological innovations, this fund would be used. That is National Clean Energy Fund. Now we have one more National Adaptation Fund. So what is this for? Yes, this was also launched in 2014 with a purpose of rupees 100 crore. So this is actually to fill in the gap. Like there'll be certain amount of funds available, but it would be much less than what is needed. So in order to fill the gap, we have the National Adaptation Fund, and it is operated under the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Okay, so that is the three funding mechanisms which is available in India. Clear? Now we have what? The carbon capture, utilization, storage mechanism. Okay. This is also really important for prelims because the Niti Aayog has recently released a framework in this regard. Okay, policy framework in CCUS. Okay. Okay, so we'll see. So Niti Aayog has recently launched carbon capture, utilization, and storage policy framework. So why did they release it? Okay, India is actually lagging behind this mechanism of carbon capture, utilization, and storage. So basically, whatever we are emitting from the industries, the carbon dioxide, we have to what? Reuse it. So that mechanism, reuse or store it back to the environment. So that is what many other countries are having a good solid framework, but India doesn't have it. So Niti Aayog has put forward a framework recently, so that more research is done in order to reduce the carbon footprint, especially in sectors with who requires deep decarbonization, such as steel, cement, etc. Okay, so basically, in order to enhance the technology, this framework is there. So what is this framework basically? I mean, what is the CCUS? Carbon capture, utilization, and storage. So we already know we are emitting a lot of carbon dioxide to the environment directly from industries, from motor vehicles, etc. So we are capturing this carbon dioxide instead of releasing directly to the environment, especially from industries, oil refineries, power plants, etc. We are capturing it. Okay, we are capturing the carbon dioxide emitted to the environment and storing it. Where do we store it? It is sequestered. That is, it is stored inside the earth. Okay, that is, we are injecting this carbon capture into the earth. That is, if there is any finished coal mines, we are going to store it there. Or if there is some rock, permeable rock, impermeable rock, we are going to store inside it. Okay, we're just injecting it into the earth. Okay, so we are storing it there. Or else we are utilizing it. How do we utilize it? Either the stored carbon dioxide is enhanced and through an enhanced oil recovery process, and then converted what to fossil fuel and utilized again, or this what captured carbon dioxide is directly utilized into after processing into what so many useful products such as urea. Okay, so we'll see this. So basically it is we are capturing the carbon from the environment, we are sequestering or storing it within the earth's surface, or we are utilizing it to what for other useful purposes. Okay, so that is carbon capture, utilization, storage mechanism. Okay, so just remember this. I've already told we are utilizing it. So what are the value added products we can make out of it? So example is there is a green urea. You can make green urea. It can be used for building materials. Like one of the greatest emitters of carbon dioxide is what? Yes, construction. So these building materials could be what used from this carbon capture and utilization mechanism, such as fly ash. Okay. Then there is chemicals such as methanol and ethanol, which can be brought from this, like a byproduct of this. Then for polymers can be made. Then also through enhanced oil recovery, we can make fossil fuel and use for what? Use for transportation and other sectors. Okay. And through this, we are trying to achieve a circular economy. Okay. That means we are just taking the carbon dioxide from the earth, from inside the earth. We're using it for industrial purposes, and whatever is released in the atmosphere, we're capturing it and then reusing it, so that this process goes on as a circular economy. Clear? So that is carbon capture, utilization, and storage. Remember, there's a new framework submitted by who? Niti Aayog. Okay. So don't forget, it is Niti Aayog. The policy framework was submitted by Niti Aayog. Okay. Okay. So there's one more important point you must remember. This CCUS projects are really significant because of the huge employment it can create. Like for example, by 2050, if we're capturing about 750 million tons per annum of carbon, if you're able to capture, it can create about 8 to 10 million jobs. Okay, so this mechanism has huge employment potential. Okay, so that is also one point you must remember about carbon capture, utilization, and storage. Okay, so now we'll move on to climate tipping points. So what is climate tipping points? Climate tipping points. Yeah, the name itself suggests it, right? So there are certain tipping points on the surface of the earth, like the certain thresholds. So if we are crossing that, what happens? You cannot stop global warming from happening. Like for example, if ice melts after a certain amount, you cannot stop it from what going back to ice, right? So such things like certain, if there is Arctic ice, Arctic permafrost. So if that is melting beyond a point, you cannot like bring back the ice, right? So that point, that beyond which it cannot come back, that is tipping point. Okay. So why is it the problem? Because of the global warming. Yes, greenhouse gas emission is triggering a lot of climate tipping points. Okay. And this could lead to a great devastation or disastrous consequences. Okay. So we'll see a few climate tipping points identified recently. One is the Amazon rainforest. Why is Amazon rainforest a problem? Yes, we can see there are frequent fires happening in Amazon rainforest. Like if you take the past few years, there has been fires, and this is due to drought conditions, right? Then we have the Arctic sea ice, which is melting like anything. Okay, and there is massive losses. Then Atlantic circulation, that is meridional circulation. So there is a cold current, warm current. There is a conveyor system happening inside the Atlantic Ocean, and this is slowing down. So we'll see the consequence of it. Then we have the boreal forest. Where is boreal forest? Yes, it is in the taiga region. That is between the latitudes of, yes, 60 to 70 degrees. Okay. So that region has boreal forest, and that there is high what frequent fires happening. Forest fires are happening. And what will happen if there's frequent fires? Yes, wood logging condition, all the logging industry, everything would be destroyed. Okay. Then there is mass destruction of coral reef, especially the Great Barrier Reef, etc. Then we have green ice sheet melting. Greenland's ice sheet. Yeah, Greenland is one of the countries with highest what ice cover. So that is also reduce melting. Then there is permafrost melting. Then we have the West Antarctic ice sheet and what Wilkes Basin. That is East Antarctic. You must see look at the location of Wilkes Basin. Okay, it is at the East Antarctic region. Okay, so both of them are melting, and there is ice loss. Okay, so these are the few tipping points identified. Okay, so as of now, the study suggests that now the Earth has already warmed 1.1 degrees Celsius, and we have already passed this 5 dangerous tipping points. And with 2 degrees Celsius, the 9 tipping points would be what? We'll cross all the 9 tipping points, especially what? The collapse of Greenland, West Antarctic, and East Antarctic ice sheet. So East Antarctic, there is Wilkes Basin. Okay. So then the collapse of Atlantic meridional overturning circulation. So actually it acts as a conveyor belt because there is warm current on top, there'll be cold current at the bottom of Atlantic. It will keep on going like this. Okay. So when it goes like this, what happens? This is actually slowing down because from Arctic region, there'll be high influx of what? After ice melt, this cold current and this warm current would be the constant thing. Like initially there'll be like very low. There is a very cold conditions at the Arctic region, and this would be changed with high influx of what? Cold water. So this meridional circulation would be disrupted because there'll be cold current going at the bottom and warm current on the top, but this would be destroyed. So when it slows down, what happens? Yes, the whole climate mechanism would be impacted. Okay. It will cause extreme drought condition, then untimely erratic rainfall condition, or would be the consequence of what? Atlantic meridional overturning circulation slowdown. Okay. Then we have Amazon dieback. The whole forest would die. And what happens? There'll be frequent fires, drought, and everything. Okay. And Amazon is called the lungs of the world, lungs of the earth. If Amazon dies, what happens? Yes, we wouldn't have no more what? Oxygen would completely deplete. Like, yeah. Okay. Then there is permafrost collapse. So what is permafrost? Yes. Just remember, it is permanent frost condition. That is, the ground would be permanently frosted. Okay. Especially in regions like Arctic. Even the soil, everything would be frosted. So that is called permafrost. So that would collapse. Okay. And it actually has started to collapse. Okay. So permafrost collapse. Okay. Then also winter sea ice loss. So we are expecting like after every summer in winter, the ice would come back to Arctic. But that is also declining. Okay. So these are the tipping points of which are identified by a report. Okay. So you just need to remember the regions and also what the about Atlantic meridional overturning circulation. Okay, clear? So that is about climate tipping point. Now we look into this World Meteorological Organization. So this is a very important organization, especially with regard to what? The climate mechanisms. Okay, in order to monitor the climate. Okay, this is a body with membership of 192 states, countries, and territories. India is a member of WMO. Precursor of WMO is International Meteorological Organization, that is IMO. Yeah, and it was established in 1873. Okay, and WMO was established in 1950. That is, IMO was changed to what? WMO when all the countries ratified in 1950 under the UN. So it is basically a specialized agency of UN. So you must remember it is a specialized agency. So you must be familiar with what organs of the UN and also the specialized agencies of the UN. Okay. So yes, WMO is a one specialized agency of the UN. Okay. And it is headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland. Okay. Now the reports of WMO is also important. So we have greenhouse gas bulletin, the status of the world climate report, then state of climate services report, and also global ocean observing system report. So these are a few of the reports published by WMO. So whenever you study one organization, you must also remember the reports published by it. So we have greenhouse gas bulletin, status of the world climate report, then state of climate services report, global ocean observing system report. Okay. So first we look into what the state of climate services report of 2021. Why is this important? Yes, it focuses on the terrestrial water storage. So it is published by the WMO, World Meteorological Organization, and the main focus is terrestrial water storage system. Okay. And according to this report, there is an increase in what? The global mean sea level. That is, on an average, 4.5 mm per year is the increase in what? Mean sea level during the period 2013 to 2020. So, in the last 10 years, at least 4.5 mm per year has increased every year. 4.5 mm every year. Okay, the sea level is what? Increasing. Okay. And also, there's one more thing you must remember. The entire coast of India, this rate is higher. Right? The global average is what? 4.5 mm. But in Indian coast, in with regard to Indian coast, this is much more higher. Okay. And also, who would be the most impacted with highest number of internal displacements? That is people who are displaced. That is impacted due to this climate change. This is the sea level rise and who would have to migrate. Those are internal displacements, right? Ask countries such as China, Vietnam, and Philippines. Okay, 3 important countries, China, Vietnam, and Philippines, according to this report. Okay. And also, this report also says that many countries, around 34% of the countries in the world, does not have what? Riverine flood forecasting and warning system. That is, if there is going to be a flood or there should be warning system. Like people should be what? Aware of it. That is flood is going to happen. So since this was not there, the Kerala floods happened. Like people were not warned, right? In 2018. So such mechanism was missing in at least 34% of the countries, right? And similarly, there's no drought forecasting system in 54% of the member countries. Just imagine, okay, there's no riverine flood forecasting system in 34% of the countries and drought forecasting system in what? 54% of the countries. And also, a quarter of the global population, that is 3 billion people, are living in water stress. Okay. And you must also remember the major regions where this water stress is where? North Africa, Central, Southern, and West Asia. Okay. It's North Africa and Asia, Southern Asia, Central Asia, and Western Asia. So these regions has what? Highest water stress. Okay. And also, a quarter of all cities across the world are already water stressed. Okay. And they experience shortages of water. Okay. So these are the main indicators in the report. Main things that present the report concerns. Okay. So you must remember this report is published by who? The World Meteorological Organization, and it mainly focuses on the terrestrial water. And they are also saying there is what? At least 4.5 mm on an average sea level rise every year. And also what? Yes, this is higher in countries such as India. Like Indian coast, there is more than global average sea level rise. And also, it also says that the there is absence of what river flood forecasting system in 34% of the countries. There is absence of drought forecasting in 54% of the countries, and a quarter of the world population is facing water stress. And the regions most impacted is where North Africa, Central Asia, Southern Asia, and West Asia. And also a quarter of all cities are already water stressed. So these are the important points from the report. Okay, and remember it is published by who? The World Meteorological Organization. Okay. Now we'll see another report called the Global Carbon Budget Report 2022. Okay. So this is also important with regard to what? Considering the global carbon footprint. So who publishes this report? It is Global Carbon Project. Okay, it is a group called Global Carbon Project which publishes this report. So whenever UPSC gives such a question, who publishes Global Carbon Budget, they might give options such as UNEP or so many other organizations with regard to environment. But remember, it is an independent organization called what? Global Carbon Project, which publishes Global Carbon Budget. Okay. So this actually gives a what? Complete picture of the global carbon cycle. Okay. And according to this report, global CO2 concentration has set what? A new record. Okay, it is ever increasing. That is, carbon dioxide emission is ever increasing, and the global CO2 concentration has put a new record. And also, we are 51% above pre-industrial levels. We are actually trying to what? Reduce the carbon emission below pre-industrial level, but we are actually 51% above the pre-industrial level. Okay. And according to this report, there are projected CO2 emissions. One interesting fact is that with regard to China and European Union, this CO2 emission is decreasing. But in the rest of the world, especially in countries such as US and India, this CO2 emission is on the rise. Okay. So according to this report, what about global carbon budget, the CO2 emission has put a new record. It is very high. Then the CO2 concentration are now 51% above pre-industrial level. And according to projection, China and European Union carbon emissions are on the decline, while US and India and the rest of the world, the carbon emissions, the CO2 emissions is on the rise. Okay. Clear? Okay. Yes. Just remember who publishes this report. Okay. Now we'll move on to one important topic, that is Convention on Biodiversity. So with that, with the last topic, we almost covered most of the topics related to climate change. Now we'll see all the important topics with regard to what? Biodiversity. Okay. So whenever we are talking about biodiversity, the most important convention is the Convention on Biodiversity. Biological diversity, that is CBD. Okay. So when was it formed? Yes, it was an outcome of the 1992 Rio Earth Summit. Okay. We have already spoken about Rio Earth Summit in the last class. There are 3 bodies which came out of what Rio Earth Summit. We have UNCCD, that is Convention to Combat Desertification. Then UNFCCC, that is UN Framework Convention to what? For climate change. Then you have CBD, that is Convention on Biological Diversity. So these 3 bodies came out of what? The 1992 Rio Earth Summit. Okay. So, and remember, Rio Earth Summit happened 20 years since what? The Stockholm Conference. Okay. Okay. So, there are 196 countries, including India, who have ratified CBD, but the US has not yet ratified. Although it participates in all the conference of parties of UNCBD, it has not ratified what? The UNCBD. Okay. And also, you must remember the 2 supplementary agreements with regard to Convention on Biological Diversity, that is the Cartagena Protocol and the Nagoya Protocol. So what is Cartagena Protocol? Yes, Cartagena Protocol is with regard to what? movement of living modified organisms. What is living modified organisms? It's basically for biosafety of living modified organisms. So living modified organisms, LMOs, are just what genetically modified organisms. So in order to like what biocell or trade this or movement across boundaries, you have to follow the Cartagena protocol. For example, we are buying BT cotton from where? From outside, right? So we are that is actually a living modified organism. That is genetically modified organisms, right? So we have to follow what? The Cartagena protocol. Okay. Then we have the Nagoya protocol along with AC targets, which was a precursor to the what Kunming-Montreal, the biological framework. So Nagoya protocol, just remember Nagoya and AC targets, where they before what? The Kunming-Montreal protocol. So we are just going to that now. And Nagoya protocol and AC charges actually expired in 2020. Okay. So that is about CBD, and three of the major objectives of Convention on Biological Diversity is, this is very important. You must remember, UPSC asked this for prelims as well as mains. There is conservation of biological diversity, sustainable use of the components of biological diversity, and also fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising out of the utilization of genetic. You must learn this by heart, okay? So there is conservation of biological diversity, sustainable use of the components of biological diversity, fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising out of the utilization of genetic resources. So these are the three main objectives of what? The Convention of Biological Diversity. Okay. And on this basis, all the protocols, that is the Nagoya protocol and the Kunming Montreal biodiversity framework, everything is on the basis of these three objectives. Okay. Okay. Even India's Biological Diversity Act is also based on these three objectives. Okay. Okay. Now we'll see the 15th COP. So the Convention on Biodiversity was formed in 93, and since we have had COP, Conference of Parties, and recently there was COP 15, which happened in Montreal. Okay. Remember, it was actually supposed to happen in Kunming in China, but due to COVID, it was further postponed. Okay, it was supposed to happen in 2020. It was postponed, and again, China had a strict COVID policy, so this could not actually take place in China. So China asked Canada to arrange the COP 15, and finally it happened where? In Montreal. Okay, so that is what UN Biodiversity Conference. It happened in Montreal. Okay, so the basic aim was to take urgent action to protect and restore the world's biodiversity. So basically, I told you the Nagoya Protocol in AC 20. So we need a new framework, right, in order to protect the environment. That is why the Montreal, Canada, and Montreal COP was basically aimed at. Okay. So what were the key outcomes in this CBD conference, COPs? The most important one is the 30 by 30 targets. So what is the 30 by 30 targets? Yes, they committed to protect at least 30% of the land and 30% of the coastal marine environment by 2030. So the target was to protect 30% of the land and 30% of the environment, of the land and marine areas by 2030. That is the 30 by 30 target. This is the most important one. Okay. Then we have the concept of money for nature. What is money for nature? Yes, we are going to save 200 billion per year. Okay, in order to conserve the nature. Okay, all the money from the public and private sectors, at least 200 billion dollar every year for conservation initiatives of nature. Okay. And one more thing you must remember, the wealthier countries has to contribute at least $20 billion until 2025 and $30 billion until 2030. Okay, so the greater contribution would be from what? The wealthier countries. Okay, so we have 30 by 30 target and money for nature. Then the next thing is reporting impacts on biodiversity. So companies across the world has to analyze whatever their operations, what impact it's causing on the biodiversity, and they have to report it. Okay, so every company has to analyze what the impact they are causing on the biodiversity, and they have to report it. Okay, and also what reduce in near zero the losses of areas of high biodiversity. So they are telling that there should be no more areas with high biodiversity which would be impacted. Like for example, regions such as Western Ghats or the Himalayas. Okay, there should not be any biodiversity loss. These are actually the biodiversity hotspots. Okay, there should be no loss of biodiversity in this area. Okay, and one of the important thing that is in order to cut global food waste in half. Okay, and reduce overconsumption and waste generation. So they're asking you to what? Reduce the food wastage. Why is it necessary to reduce food wastage? Yes, if you reduce the food wastage, like food is actually a byproduct of what? Agriculture, right? It is obtained from agriculture. So if you're wasting food, you're wasting what? The land used for that agriculture, the water that is used in order to what, cultivate the crop or whatever you're eating. So whatever you're doing, what that will contribute to what? Climate change or maybe drought of the region, right? So you're going to excessively do agriculture in order to what? If there is food waste, so that could be reduced. Okay, so they're asking you to what? Half the global food waste and also reduce overconsumption and waste generation. Okay, so it's actually promoting sustainable agriculture practices. Okay, and also next important thing is reduce harmful subsidies. Okay, they're asking you to phase out or reform subsidies that harm biodiversity by 2030. So can you tell me some examples of harmful biodiversity? So harmful subsidies. One of the harmful subsidies is what? Electricity. Electricity for agriculture sector in India. That is one example. You might think why I'm calling it as harmful subsidies. Why is it so? Yes, actually for agriculture, electricity is subsidized. So what happens? People just use the electricity to pump water from what? The tube wells and wells, whatever it is, and they pump out water for flood degree. They don't have any account. They just keep on pumping water. So what will happen? Yes, it will be useful for irrigation. At the same time, there'll be what? Excessive water table decline. That is, groundwater would be depleted. Okay, so the subsidy for electricity is indirectly harming what? The land. That is, it is contributing to the degradation of land, and hence it is contributing what? To the biodiversity, impacting the biodiversity of the region. Okay, if there is decline in water table, that means it will lead to drought-like condition and also increase aridity, thereby change the biodiversity. Okay, so this harmful subsidies has to be such similar harmful subsidies. This is just one example. Okay, there are so many other subsidies. Like for example, we have subsidies for urea also. That is also impacting. Okay, so such subsidies has to be reduced or reformed. Okay, next is pollution and pesticide. They are also asking to what? Half both excess nutrients and also the pesticides used. Okay, so reducing the chemical pesticide and also the what? Fertilizers used. Okay, they are asking to half. Okay, and also monitoring and reporting the progress. That is, national action plans has to be set up in order to what? Monitor and report the progress. Okay, so these are the key outcomes of what? The COP 15 of Convention of Biological Diversity. So you must remember what? 30 by 30 target. Okay, and the concept of reducing the wastage of food, wasting or halving the food wastage, right? And also with regard to harmful subsidies, we are trying to phase it out. Then also reduce half the what? Pollution of pesticide and also excess nutrient usage, and also monitoring and reporting progress. Okay, so these are the basic outcomes of COP15. So one important thing you must remember of this COP is the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. So what is this Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework? Okay, as I've already told, Kunming is a place in China that this COP was supposed to happen. But since China cannot conduct a COP due to COVID, they asked Canada to launch COP in Montreal. Okay, so this biodiversity framework is basically Kunming-Montreal, called Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, and it is a successor of what the Nagoya Protocol and 80 targets. Okay, which earlier tried to reduce the impact of the biodiversity losses. Okay. Okay. So before going to this framework, we just see what it is. As I've told you, it is part of COP15 of CBD. It was adopted there, and it includes 4 goals and 23 targets for achievement by 2030. Okay. So before that, we must also learn about the Kunming Declaration, which happened last year in 2021. 2 years back in 2021. It was signed by more than 100 countries, the Kunming Declaration. Okay. So why is it important? It is actually a precursor. So I told you, since China could not conduct, they actually conducted a virtual agreement. Okay. So they were asking countries to effectively adopt a global biodiversity framework. So they told the countries, yes, the already Nagoya Protocol has expired. So we must take a new step. That is, a new global biodiversity framework should be formed post 2020 era. Okay, so that was basically Kunming Declaration, and the theme was ecological civilization, building a shared future for all of the earth. Okay, it is not just for human beings, but for all, everybody across the biodiversity, all animals, all plants, everything. And one important thing you must remember is during this declaration, China started a Kunming Biodiversity Fund. So there is a Kunming Biodiversity Fund which was launched by China. Okay, and it has a corpus of $230 million. Okay, so with the basic aim of supporting the biodiversity, China started Kunming Biodiversity Fund, okay, as part of Kunming Declaration with a corpus of $230 million. Okay, and this was when the first time the concept of 30 by 30 was launched. So what is 30 by 30? Yes, we are trying to conserve 30% of the land and 30% of the marine environment by 2030. Okay, Earth's land and oceans would be preserved. Okay, or reclaimed. Okay. So now we'll see what are the global biodiversity framework. Okay, the 4 goals of GBI. First one is to stop or completely halt human-induced extinction of threatened species, and also reduce the rate of extinction tenfold by 2050. So what is this human-induced extinction of threatened species? Can you give an example? Yes, cheetahs. Indian cheetahs was extinct, has become extinct, right? That is why we were opting for a cheetah reintroduction program. Okay, it's happening recently in India, right? So cheetah was extinct just because of excessive hunting by humans. Okay, the kings and rajas of the earlier times, they used to kill the cheetahs to show that they are great. Okay, so such activities have led to extinction. Like for now, we have poaching, we have so many illegal trade of the species, so many things, but such things should be reduced. So they are asking to completely halt this human-induced extinction, and also a tenfold reduction in the rate of extinction of species by 2050. Tenfold. Okay, that is the first goal. Now, the second goal is similar to the previous one, and also the objective of the CBD, that is sustainable use and management of biodiversity. Okay, so in order to conserve the nature and also ensure people's participation. Okay, so sustainable use of management of Sustainable use and management of biodiversity. Third one is also the similar to the early one, that is fair sharing of the benefits from the utilization of genetic resources, but also what digital sequence information on genetic resources. So it's not just what benefits, fair sharing of the benefits of genetic resources, but also the new goal of GBF is to ensure digital sequencing of information on genetic resources. Okay, and the last target is what, to ensure adequate means. So we already we have created a framework, but this has to be implemented by who? The least developed countries and the small island nations, right? Since so they need to have access. This global biodiversity framework should be accessible to them, as well as there should be implementing mechanism for them. So this has to be accessible. Okay, so that is the fourth goal. So the four goals include what, reducing the extinction, human induced extinction, and also what, tenfold decline in rate of extinction of species by 2050, sustainable use and management of biodiversity, fair share of the benefits and from utilization of genetic resources, along with what, digital sequence of information on genetic resources, and also that there should be adequate means for what, implementing the global biological diversity framework, to especially for countries such as least developed countries and small island nations. Okay, so these are the four goals of global biodiversity framework. Now we'll also see what the basic areas of focus. The framework policy focuses more on what, the role of cities in the new ideals of nature, because cities are, as we call, they are concrete jungles. So they are one of the huge contributors of what, global warming, right? There are what, high emissions from the cities. So the focus should be on what, reducing the biodiversity loss and impact from the cities. Okay. Then there is global scenario to halt and restore the nature. We're trying to what, halt the extinction of species and also to restore the nature. We are focusing on transformative change, rethinking the singular use of landscapes. So just remember, landscape does not have a single use. It cannot be solely used for what, agriculture, or it cannot be solely used for some other purpose. So we are using what, concepts such as agroforestry, where both forestry and agriculture could be practiced. Okay, so we are rethinking the singular purpose, and we are also focusing the role of financial and business sectors. That is, funding is essential. Okay, because without funding, we cannot conserve what, the biodiversity. And also, these financial and business sectors should also focus on reducing their what, impact on biological diversity. Okay, and also this framework focuses on participatory approach. That is, society has to take part in the restoration of nature. Only then would this what, global biodiversity conservation sustain. Okay, so these are the major focus areas of global biodiversity policy framework. Now we'll see the major targets. So we saw the four important goals. Now we'll see the major targets. Just remember, this was adopted where in COP50. So the targets has similarity with what? The same as the outcomes of COP50. Okay. So obviously there is 30 by 30 deal, that is restoring 30% of the land, degrade ecosystem globally, and also coverage and manage 30% of this area, both terrestrial and coastal. That is, land, all the ecosystem of the land and the sea should be recovered at least 30% by 2030. That is 30 by 30D. That is the first target of what, Kunming-Monterey Global Biodiversity Framework. Then we have the stop the extinction of known species. That is, we already told, we are trying to what, reduce human-induced extinction of species, and also what, we are trying to halt. No, we are not trying to reduce. We are trying to halt the extinction of known species, and also tenfold reduction in the extinction rate. Okay, by 2050. Then we have the concept of reducing. We have the target of reducing what, pesticide use by 50% by 2030. Yes, at least 50% of nutrient loss to environment by 2030. So what is this nutrient loss to environment? What are the nutrients we supply to environment? Yes, in the form of fertilizer. For example, urea. Okay. India especially is using disproportionately urea. Right. So what will happen to this excess nutrients, excess urea? Yes, it will leach out to where it will flow from the agriculture region to nearby ponds, lakes, etc. And what will happen to the ponds there or lakes there? Yes, eutrophication would happen. Yeah, right. When eutrophication happens, what will happen? There'll be excessive blooming of algae, and all the dissolved oxygen content from the lake would get depleted. Right. And what will happen if the dissolved oxygen content is depleted? Yes, the biodiversity of the lake would be impacted. Okay. So this happened just because of excessive nutrient loss to the environment. So this has to be declined at least by 50% by 2030. Okay. So this is another target. Now we have the other target of reducing pollution risk and negative impacts of the pollution. Okay. So these are a few targets. So we have the 30 by 30 deal, then halving the extinction, halting the extinction of species and also tenfold decline in the extinction rate, then halving the pesticide use, halving the nutrient loss to environment, and reducing the pollution risk and negative impacts. There are a few more targets we'll see again. The next target is what? To reduce the global food. So we have already spoken of what? The food waste generation. Okay, so this also targets to what? Reduce overconsumption and waste generation and half the food waste. So halving food waste would lead towards sustainable agriculture. Okay, sustainable use of resources. Okay, as the saying goes, what? Earth has everything for a man's need, but not for man's greed. Right? So this is basically based on that concept. Okay, so we are trying to reduce overconsumption and waste generation and half the food waste. Okay, apart from that, the target is also to manage areas under aquaculture, agriculture, fisheries, and forestry as an alternative means of Yes, agriculture practices, and also increase agroecology. Okay, and also there should be nature-based solutions for climate change. So they are asking not to adopt climate engineering practice which impact the environment, but instead opt for nature-based solutions. Okay, such as afforestation practices, which will not impact the ecology or biodiversity. Okay. The next thing is reduce the rate of introduction of establishment of invasive alien species by at least 50%. So what are these invasive alien species? Yes, invasive alien species are those species which, if introduced to the environment, what will happen? Yes, the environment there or the organisms there or the species there would be killed or impacted. Okay, and this invasive alien species would flourish there. Okay, so the GBF, Global Biodiversity Framework, aims to at least half this invasive alien species. So remember, this invasive alien species is a favorite topic of UPSC. Like, for example, there is Lantana camara, Proposis durifera. Okay, all these have been asked for prelims. Okay, Lantana camara, Proposis durifera. Okay, and there is also African catfish. These are few of the invasive alien species. UPSC have asked for prelims as well. Okay, Lantana camara, Proposis durifera. Okay, then we have the next aim of secure the safe, legal, and sustainable use and trade of wild species, and also greening up urban spaces. Okay, greening up urban spaces is very important because I have already told. Yes, they are the major contributors of the climate change and carbon dioxide emissions. Okay, so these are the important targets. Okay, we have 30 by 30 targets. Then reducing the pesticide use, at least halving it, halting the extinction of species, reducing reducing pollution, okay, reducing excessive nutrient usage, that is fertilizers, etc., Then also what reducing the global footprint of consumption by 2030, that is reducing overconsumption and waste generation. Okay. Then we also have what sustainable management of areas under aquaculture, agriculture, etc. And also ensure adopt nature-based solution rather than technical or climate engineering mechanisms for what overcoming the climate change impact, and also reduce what the impact of introduction of what invasive alien species by 50% by 2030, and also greening urban spaces. Okay, so these are the major objective of what global biodiversity framework. Yeah. So you must remember CBD is very important topic, especially for both limbs and males. Okay, so you must know what is CBD, when was it formed, the basic objectives of CBD. Okay, the latest COP15. Okay, in which 30 by 30 deal is very important. Okay, and also all the other outcomes of COP50. Okay, then we spoke about what is Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, which is also important. Okay, so before that, we must also learn about the Kunming Declaration. Okay, so after Kunming Declaration, what was there? We looked into the 4 goals of Global Biodiversity Framework and also the targets of Global Biodiversity Framework. Make sure you remember all the points. Okay, all the important points. Okay. Okay. So now we'll move on to the next topic, that is UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration. Okay. So yes, this decade, that is 2020 to 2030, UN has declared as a decade on ecosystem restoration. Okay. Yes. So 2020, this has declared by UNGA, that is United Nations General Assembly, as the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration. And you must also remember this is led by who? The main contributors, UNEP and FAO, that is Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN, and also with other partners. So major partners are, it is led by who? UNEP and FAO, UN Decade of Ecosystem Restoration. Why is it done? Yes, we are trying to restore the ecosystem. So we know already what there are so many ecosystems such as Sahara Desert, or so many land which is being degraded or desertified due to excessive agriculture or due to drought or heat waves. Okay, so in order to overcome this, okay, that is in order to prevent, halt, or reverse the loss and degradation of ecosystem. Okay, this decade, that is 2020-2030, is what declared. Okay, India also has committed to what revive so many hectares of what ecosystems, both terrestrial and aquatic. Okay, so in order to achieve this, they have what identified or declared 10 world restoration flagships. Okay, 10 regions across the world. Okay, they have identified, or 10 initiatives across the world as restoration flagships, what the government across the world is doing. Okay, although this UN decade of ecosystem restoration would not be asked directly, you might have questions from where this 10 world restoration flagships. Okay, so we'll see what are the 10 UN world restoration flagships. Okay. Okay, so what are the major flagships? Yes, we have the Great Green Wall for Restoration and Peace, that is the Sahel region. Okay, Great Green Wall in Sahel region below the Sahara Desert in Africa. Yes, then we have the Ganga Rejuvenation, River Rejuvenation, that is Namami Ganga program. Then we have the Multi-Country Mountain Initiative. We also have the Small Island Developing States and Restoration Drive. Then Altan Dala Conservation Initiative in Kazakhstan. Then there is Central American Dry Corridor. Then Building with Nature in Indonesia, in the region called Demak. Okay. Then we have the Shanshui Initiative in China. Then there is the Tri-National Atlantic Forest Pact in South America, across countries Brazil, Argentina, and Paraguay. Then we also have the Abu Dhabi Marine Restoration. Okay, so these are the 10 flagships introduced as a part of what, identified as a part of what, the UN Decade for Ecosystem Restoration. So we'll see each of this in detail. Okay. Okay. So first, we'll see what is the Great Green Wall Initiative. Okay, it actually started long back. Okay, so these countries in what, north central part of what, Africa, below the Sahara Desert. So they're creating a great green wall across these countries, so that what, the desert of Sahara does not what spread to the southern part of Africa, and also reduce the degradation of the land there. Okay, so that is the objective of Great Green Wall Initiative. So it is trying to restore the savanna, grassland, and farmlands across Africa by creating a belt of green and productive landscape across these 11 countries. Okay, you can see these 11 countries in this region. So they're trying to create a great green wall across this region. Okay, so this is a savanna region. They're trying to restore this. And with this UN Decade flagship, the focus is more on countries such as Burkina Faso and Niger. So where is Burkina Faso? We have Burkina Faso here and Niger here. Okay, just remember the location as well, because UPSC has a tendency to ask about the neighboring states or locations, or is it near the equator or near the ocean or something like that. Okay, so Burkina Faso and Niger. So it is a part of Great Green Wall Initiative. It is in Africa. Okay, next is the Multi-Country Mountain Initiative. Okay, so as the name suggests, this initiative is spread across countries such as Serbia, Kyrgyzstan, Uganda, and Rwanda. Okay, so we have 4 countries for Multi-Country Mountain Initiative: Serbia, Kyrgyzstan, Uganda, and Rwanda. And they are trying to what? Preserve the mountain ecosystem. So they are trying to what? Make the mountain ecosystem resilient, so that what, the unique biodiversity in this region could be protected and would be what, helpful for, beneficial for the people there. That is genetic use of the biodiversity. Okay, fair sharing of the biodiversity. Okay, so that is the Multi-Country Mountain Initiative. Remember the countries: Serbia, Kyrgyzstan, Uganda, and Rwanda. So it is multi-country across continent. Okay. Then we have the Small Island Developing State Restoration Drive. That is mainly on focus with Vanuatu Island, Saint Lucia, and Comoros. Okay, they are trying to what? Restore these islands. Why are they trying to restore? So that they can recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, so they're trying to what? Restore the ridge to reef. That is ridges and reefs in this region, and also that they can boost the blue economy. Okay. So why do they have to boost the blue economy? So that the country can rebound, these island nations can rebound from where? The impact of COVID-19. So most of these island nations, the economy would be based on what? Either the blue economy, that is with regard to the fishing or the coastal region, or with regard to tourism. So these are the major income sources of island nations. And Vanuatu and Saint Lucia and Comoros had an impact of COVID-19 pandemic, like as the rest of the nation, and they are trying to recover. Okay, that is the Small Island Developing States Restoration Drive. Okay, then we have the Altan Daila Conservation Initiative. This is important because this is a saiga species. This is saiga. Okay, this is one critically endangered species, and this conservation reserve initiative is trying to what? Restore the habitat of the saiga there. Okay, it is basically in Kazakhstan. It actually started in 2005, and this Altan Daila Conservation Initiative tries to what? Restore the steppe, semi-desert, and desert ecosystem, which is a habitat of the saiga. Okay, and remember, saiga is a critically endangered species. Okay, so through this conservation initiative, they're trying to reclaim this habitat of the saiga. Okay, And remember, it is in Kazakhstan. Okay. And then we have the Central American Dry Corridor. Okay. What is the Central American Dry Corridor? Yes. We'll see which states it is. Before that, yes, Central American Dry Corridor, it is almost like where? To the north of the equator, right, in the tropics, but and hence there'll be strong heat waves. And also, since we have both Atlantic Ocean and Pacific Ocean on both sides of the Central America, there could be what? Unpredictable, erratic rainfall in the region. Okay, so this high frequency rainfall, right, and this heat waves is ever increasing in this region, resulting what? Resulting in a dry corridor. And this initiative still tries to reclaim or save these vulnerable countries. Okay, and how are they trying to do it? By yes, reintroducing or preserving the traditional farming methods. Okay, and also what they're trying to restore the lost biodiversity, and so they're actually adopting a natural method. Okay, they are tapping the traditional farming practices and also to increase the productivity and also trying to restore the biodiversity. Okay, then you must also remember the states, which are the important states in this or countries. 6 countries, mainly Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, and Panama. So these are the Central American dry countries which are part of the Central American dry corridors. We have Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador, and also there is Panama here. Okay. So these are the 6 countries, Central American dry corridor. Okay. Okay, then we also have what? Building with nature in Indonesia. That is the next initiative. So what do you mean by building with nature? Yes, Indonesia is one of the countries which is facing what? High flooding, high what? Even capital of Indonesia is sinking, right? So there is a region called Demak in Java, which is part of Indonesia, which is plagued with what? High erosion, flooding, and land loss. Okay, and this is happening mainly because of what? The mangroves being removed from the region. So through this initiative, Indonesia is trying to what? Recover the mangroves. So what are they going to do? So remember this region, Demak in Java Islands. Okay, so it is facing high erosion, floods, and land loss, and mainly due to what? The reduction of mangroves, and Indonesia is trying to what? Recover this mangroves. So they're trying to build fences. So what happens when they build fences? Natural fences. Okay, not concrete or anything. They're trying to build natural fences. So when huge waves come, these waves are calmed by this what? Fences. Okay, and they also trap the sediments. So whenever wave comes, what will happen? Wave comes, hits the fences in this region, and the force of the wave declines. So when the force of the wave declines, what happens? It will also settle sediments. Okay, whatever sediments this wave is transporting, it will be sedimented at the fence region, and this creates a platform for what? The regrowth of mangroves. Okay, so that is what they are trying to do with this building with nature initiative in Indonesia. Okay, so they're trying to recover what? The Demak region mangroves in Java in Indonesia. Okay, by creating natural fences. Okay, so that is building with nature initiative in Indonesia. Okay, then there is Shanshui initiative in China. So China is doing a big project of 75 large scale projects. So they are combining all 75 projects across like mountains, coastal estuaries, everything together. And they are like, the project is basically for what? Restoring the ecosystem. Okay, it was launched in 2016, and they're trying to what? Systematically restore. It is a systematic approach. So there are 75 large projects across mountains, and coastal estuaries. Okay, all over the country. Okay, the Sanctuary Initiative in China. Okay. Okay. Then we have the Tri-National Atlantic Forest. So this is important. Why? Yes, the South America has another important forest other than the Amazon forest. So we know that Amazon is in the northern part of Brazil, but this Atlantic forest is in the southern part. Okay, so this tri-national pact is with regard to countries such as Brazil, Paraguay, and Argentina, where this Atlantic forest exists. But the problem is this forest has reduced into fragments. Okay, due to human activities, forest fires, encroachment, etc. This whole Atlantic forest has reduced into what? Fragments. Okay, and there are so many organizations which are trying to overcome this fragmentation of forest in the Atlantic forest region. Okay, so where exactly is this Atlantic forest? Yes, you can see here. See, there is Brazil, Paraguay, and Argentina. It is spread across this region. Okay, near the Atlantic coast. So that is why it is called Atlantic forest. Okay, so on top, like if you're taking the Brazil, here you have what? Atlantic forest, and top here you have what? Amazon. Okay, so Atlantic forest is there. Remember, it is across three countries: Brazil, Paraguay, and Argentina. And we have the tri-national Atlantic forest pact in order to recover this forest. Okay, that is tri-national Atlantic forest pact. Then there is also Abu Dhabi Marine Restoration. Okay, so Abu Dhabi, it is where it is a Gulf capital of United Arab Emirates, which is a Gulf country. Okay, in the Persian Gulf. Okay, so this region would be highly impacted by what? The global warming, and this sea is one of the world's warmest sea. Okay, and that is why they are planning to restore the coastal ecosystem through coastal development and creating resilient coastal structures. Okay, so they're trying to make coastal ecosystem resilient and also ensure rapid coastal development in order to overcome this warming of seas due to global warming. Okay, so that is Abu Dhabi Marine Restoration. Okay, so remember it is in the Persian Gulf region. Okay, so these were the 10 initiatives. There's one more initiative, that is Ganga rejuvenation. We'll see that in more detail. But these are the rest of the 9 initiatives. So, okay, so we'll see it once more. The 10 flagships. So we have the Great Green Wall Initiative. Where is it? The Great Green Wall Initiative. Yes, Sahel region in just below Sahara Desert in Africa. Okay, there across 11 countries, we are creating a Great Green Wall in order to restore the savannas of the Africa. Okay. Then yes, we have the Namami Ganga or Ganga River Rejuvenation Program. We also have the multi-country mountain initiative across countries such as, yes, Kyrgyzstan. Yes, then we have Kyrgyzstan, Serbia, Rwanda, and Uganda. Okay, 4 countries. Okay, multi-country mountain initiative. We are trying to restore the mountains in this region. Then we have small island development state restoration drive across islands such as Comoros, Vanuatu, and Saint Lucia. Okay, so we have small island developing state is restoration drive. Then Altyn Dala Conservation Initiative in Kazakhstan. Okay, in order to conserve the habitat of or restore the habitat of critically endangered saiga species. Okay, so we have Altyn Dala Conservation Initiative in Kazakhstan. So basically it is a restoration of steppe, desert, and semi-desert region of which is a habitat of the saiga, critically endangered saiga populations. Okay, then we have the Central American dry corridor across 6 countries in Central America, which faces what? Erratic rainfall and heat waves. Okay, then built with nature in Indonesia in the region of Demak in Java. They are trying to what? Restore the mangroves through natural fences. Okay, then we have the Shanshui initiative in China. They have 75 large projects. Okay, so they are trying to overcome what the impact of biodiversity loss and climate change through initiative across mountains and the oceans. Okay, and the coastal region all across China. There are 75 large projects. Okay, which focus on restoration. Then we have the Tri-National Atlantic Forest Pact with countries such as Argentina, Brazil, and Paraguay. Remember, Uruguay is not there. Okay, Paraguay is there. Okay, and you must also know where the Atlantic forest is. Okay, it is in the south of Brazil, and also in the neighboring countries of Argentina and Paraguay. And also there is Abu Dhabi Marine Restoration. Okay, which mainly focuses on Abu Dhabi Marine Restoration focuses on restoring the coastal ecosystem. Okay, and also what? Development drives in the coastal region. Okay, because it is one of the warmest, it is on the coast of one of the warmest seas. Okay, so these are the 10 flagships of what? UN Decade of Ecosystem Restoration. Yeah, okay. So now we'll see the Ganga Regeneration, National Mission for Clean. So in that, in the what? Ganga Regeneration Program, first we'll see the National Mission for Clean Ganga. Okay, so this was there frequently in news. Okay, so what is National Mission for Clean Ganga? Yes, it is actually what established in 2011 under the as a society, National Mission for Clean Ganga. Okay, initially it was what? An implementation arm for what? National Ganga River Basin Authority. But yeah, it was under Environmental Protection Act, that is National Ganga River Basin Authority. Okay, so National Mission for Clean Ganga was an implementation of this under the Environmental Protection Act. But now what happens? This has been dissolved and the new National Ganga Council has been formed. Okay, so now this body is an implementation of National Ganga Council. Okay, so then actually the name of National Ganga Council is National Council for Rejuvenation, Protection and Management of River Ganga, which is commonly called as National Ganga Council, and this has replaced what? National Ganga River Basin Authority, and NMCG is an implementing arm of this body. Okay, okay. So why is this there? What are the major objectives of NMCG? Yes, they are trying to what? Rehabilitate and boosting the existing sewage treatment plant and to curb what? Pollution at exit points on the riverfront. Okay, so what does that mean? What are these pollution exit points? Okay, so when we're talking about water pollution, especially river pollution, there are two types of pollution, that is point sources and non-point sources. Okay, so what are these point sources? Okay, these are sources like, for example, there is an industry. Okay, and they are what? They are what? They are pushing all their solid waste, that is their sewage waste from the industry into the river. So since that industry is located near the river, we can identify the source of pollution, right? It is from a particular point, that is the point of industry. Okay, so that is the exit point. That is a point source. And where we cannot identify the what location of pollution of water, that is non-point source. Okay, so usually point source pollution are basically industries or fertilizer plant or whatever plant is there or locations near the river. Okay, so this National Mission for Clean Ganga, the objective is to what? Ensure and rehabilitate all the existing sewage treatment. So whenever an industry is what putting or polluting or disposing their waste into the river, through this mission they try to what? Recover. They try to ensure that only treated sewage is dumped into the river. Okay, Ganga. Okay. Then we have the main next objective, that is to maintain the continuity of the water flow. That is, there should not be any damming or what obstruction in the flow of the river. There should be continuous flow in the Ganga river. And also next is what the objective is to restore and maintain the surface flow and the groundwater. Okay. Apart from that, they are also trying to what rejuvenate or regenerate the natural vegetation in the area, that is around the Ganges. So basically, they are trying to rehabilitate the existing sewage treatment plant, especially by identifying the what exit points. Okay, and also ensuring what continuous flow of water in the Ganga, and restore and maintain the surface flow and groundwater, and also restore the natural vegetation of the area. Apart from this, they're also trying to what recover the biodiversity of the Gangetic basin. So, okay, why have we to conserve the and regenerate the aquatic biodiversity? Yes, for example, the Gangetic dolphin. Okay, it is an endangered species, and due to the pollution of Ganga, the species is being on the verge of extinction. Okay, so as of now, it is endangered. That is, the Gangetic dolphin is endangered species, but it could be extinct. So they are trying to conserve this such kind of aquatic species, which is in the river Ganga. Okay, and also they are trying to ensure what public participation. And so the government cannot do conservation of the river alone. So all the people along the Ganges should be taken into account. Only then will this protection be what effective. Okay, so these are the major objectives of what National Mission for Clean Ganga. So basically, what are they trying to do? They are trying to abate pollution by what ensuring effective sewage treatment plants across the Gangetic basin, ensuring continuous flow of river, ensuring surface flow and groundwater, recovering the natural vegetation, and also what conserving the aquatic biodiversity, especially along the Gangetic and the Raipe and its tributaries, and also ensuring what public participation. Okay, so these are the basic objectives of what National Mission for Clean Ganga. Okay, so now we'll move on to one of the most important programs, that is Namami Gange program. All of you would have heard of this program, okay, because this is one of the most important programs of the present government. Okay, so it is actually a flagship program of the government launched in 2014. Okay, and it has about budget of what 20,000 crore. Okay, so the basic aim is to clean Ganga, and it is a flagship program of the government. The twin objectives which they try to achieve is effective abatement of pollution and also conservation and rejuvenation of the national river Ganga. Okay, so Ganga is one of the most important rivers or most revered rivers in the country, and through this mission we are trying to what reduce the or what completely what abates or completely reduce the pollution in Ganga and conserve and rejuvenate. Not just reduce the pollution, but also what conserve and rejuvenate. That is recover the national river. That is river. Okay, Ganga. So basically, we are trying to what bring back the old Ganga to its life. Okay, with no pollution. Okay. So basically, what dynamic is in order to address the emerging needs and priorities across the Ganga and its tributaries, so that the river is preserved. So that is Namami Ganga, and it is what operated by Department of Water Resource and River Development, Ganga Rejuvenation, under Ministry of Jal Shakti. Okay, since the new Ministry of Jal Shakti was formed, this program is brought under Ministry of Jal Shakti. Okay, and obviously it is implemented by who? National Mission for NMCG. Okay. Okay. Now, the second phase is going on. Okay, the second phase, that is 2021-26, is going on as of now. And what are the basic aims in the latest Namami Gange project? Already we have a lot of targets, okay, but we haven't completed. Like we still know that it is still now polluted, and there are so many objectives to be completed, targets to be completed. So this the new phase of the Namami Ganga, that is the phase 2, is trying to complete all the projects which are pending and also submit a detailed report of why there is delay and also scheduling. There's cutting down all the delays, possible delays in the projects. Okay, so that we can totally rejuvenate the river Ganga. Remember, it is implemented by who? National Mission for Clean Ganga. Okay, and yes, it is under Ministry of Jal Shakti. Okay. Okay, so they're trying to what? Not only abate pollution but also conserve and rejuvenate Ganga. Okay, so that is Namami Ganga, and also you must remember what the main pillars. What are the main pillars? Yes, we already spoke of sewage treatment infrastructure. Why is it needed? Yes, whenever there is point source of pollution, when there is effluent from the industries, it has to be treated before disposing where into the river. So there should be sewerage treatment infrastructure. Okay. Then there is riverfront development. Like for example, the ghats of Varanasi or the ghats around Sarayu. All these are getting developed now. Okay, so that people can go there. Okay, like we know that since Ganga is the most revered river in the country, people go there very often, like in order to offer prayers or in order to visit or whatever it is. So they are planning a riverfront development program. Okay, so that the river becomes so attractive tourists and also people across the country. Okay, then there is river surface cleaning. Okay, because most of the pollutants would be floating on the surface, like for example, plastics would be floating on the surface. So the surface cleaning should be there. Okay. Then biodiversity conservation, both aquatic biodiversity as well as terrestrial, that is on the banks of Ganga, whatever is there. Okay. For example, Garial. Okay. Then there is afforestation drive. Afforestation all across the banks of Ganga. Then I already told that it should be what public awareness, like that you should not pollute it. Okay, or you should treat, like if the industry should be aware that you should treat the pollutants before dumping into the river. Okay, so public awareness should be there, and also when the industry is polluted, if public are aware, they will protest. Okay, so public participation is key. Then industrial effluent monitoring. So it is not just necessary to install sewage treatment plants, but also monitoring is necessary, because most of the times what happens, there would be sewage treatment plants, but it wouldn't be working. So if there is only proper monitoring, can we improve the or reduce the industrial effluent. Okay, so we can make the industries accountable for the pollution. Okay, then also we have the main pillar, the Ganga Gram. So what is Ganga Gram? Have you heard of Ganga Gram? Yes, these are villages on the banks of Ganga, which are under this mission, which would be developed as ideal villages. Like for example, these villages will be open defecation free for sure. There would be proper sewage treatment plants, both solid and liquid waste management, etc. So there'd be proper ideal village, model villages, Ganga Gram. Okay, and this will be on the banks of river Ganga. So these are the major pillars. So we have sewage treatment infrastructure, riverfront development, river surface cleaning, biodiversity conservation, afforestation practices, public awareness, industrial effluent monitoring, and Ganga Gram. So these are the pillars of the Namami Gange program. Okay. So yes, we're going to the last topic, that is Arth Ganga. Okay. So we spoke about Namami Gange. The basic aim was in order to preserve the environment or preserve the Ganga, rejuvenate it, and also abate pollution. But our Prime Minister told in 2019 and the National Ganga Council meeting that it is not just necessary to what preserve or respect or rejuvenate Ganga, we can also what economically benefit from it. Okay, so that is the basic concept of Ardh Ganga. So basically, it is promoting sustainable development. That is, it implies a sustainable development model with the focus on what economic activities related to Ganga. So, like, yeah, there are so many people living on the banks of Ganga whose livelihood is totally dependent on the Ganges, right? So they need some economic activities. Okay, so that what it becomes the river, it becomes beneficial for them. Okay, so but the thing is, it should be on the lines of what preserving and rejuvenating Ganga. Okay, should be on the lines of sustainable development. Okay, so this concept was first introduced by in the National Ganga Council meeting in Kanpur in 2019 by our Prime Minister. Okay, and they urged that it should not just be Namami Ganga, but that should be shift to Ardh Ganga. Okay, Ardh means based on economy. Okay, there should be some economic benefit from. Okay, so that is the new target of Namami Ganga. So this has been in use since then, and very recently also initiatives are being taken on the lines of Ardh Ganga. Okay, so there are 6 verticals of Ardh Ganga. What are the 6 verticals? Yes, the first one is zero budget natural farming. So what is zero budget natural farming? Yes, it is basically what farming in tune with the nature. Okay, so basically what is the main aim? You would not spend any money on what farming practices. There'll be zero budget for it, and you're trying to what sync your agriculture practice with nature. Okay, you're not going to use fertilizers or anything which you have to spend money, both chemical and organic. Nothing would be used. Okay, so zero budget natural farming. That is the first pillar. Okay, then we have what the monetization and reuse of sludge and wastewater. Okay, so whatever wastewater we are producing, we are trying to reuse it. We are going to treat the waste instead of just what disposing it into the river Ganga. Whatever industrial effluence or wastewater is there, we are reusing it and using it for what industrial purposes. Okay, so this is another pillar. Then we have livelihood generation opportunities. Okay, already told Ardh Ganga, it is for what economic benefits of the people. Okay, we are going to bring over economic benefits from the Ganges. Okay, so government is trying to create huts, that is markets, okay, across the banks of Ganga, so that what people can trade or sell their produce. Like, for example, some handicrafts or whatever they are making, they can sell in these huts. So through that, they'll create what livelihood opportunities. Okay, so then we have the next important pillar, that to increase public participation. Yes, already we have told all the initiatives related to Ganges is basically on what public participation. So there is a need for higher public participation for all these to be successful. Okay. Then the next pillar is to promote the cultural heritage and tourism of Ganga through what water, like what boat tourism, like in Ganga, like Ghats of Varanasi. You can promote boat tourism. You can also promote what yoga tourism. Okay, so they're trying to preserve the culture along with what attract tourists to the banks of Ganga. Okay, so that this is also what ensure income to the local community there. Okay, and the last objective is what to promote institution building by empowering local administration for improve water governance. Okay, so you must empower the gram sabhas there or the villages there. Okay, local administration there. Okay, so these are the 6 verticals of Ardh Ganga, which is the latest initiative of what or the Prime Minister has emphasized the transition from Namami Ganga to Ardh Ganga. Okay, so the pillars is zero budget natural farming, the monetization reuse of sludge and wastewater, livelihood generation opportunities through huts, to increase public participation, to promote cultural heritage tourism of Ganga, such as boat tourism or yoga tourism, whatever, and to promote institution building by empowering local administration for improve water governance. Okay, so that is it about Arthanga. Okay, so we have covered all the topics. Made almost around, I think, 12, 18 topics today. Okay, so importantly in this, you must know about all the locations or regions which we have discussed today. That is very important, especially the ecosystem, like that is flagships regions on decade of ecosystem restoration, and also all the reports and who is this published by and whatever with regard to that, and also about Namami Ganga and Arthanga. Arthanga has been frequently in news very recently. That is also important in this year's film's point of view. Okay, and also yes, of course, the CBD, Convention on Biodiversity, that is very important, and also the Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, that is also very important. Okay, and you must remember about the 30 by 30 targets and all the other targets under this Global Biodiversity Framework. Okay, and also remember, like last year was 50 years of Stockholm Conference, and also UNAP, which was established under the Stockholm Conference. So you must know about the UNAP and also all the reports which it publishes. Okay. Okay. So I think these were the important topics which come. Oh, and yes, we also spoke about carbon capture, utilization, and storage, which is what a framework which is in the policy framework introduced by the NITI Aayog. So when you learn that, especially for environment and science and technology, this topic is important because in case of science and technology, they'll ask about the technological mechanisms and what are the outcomes, like what this could be used for. Like, for example, we already spoke about green urea, building materials, etc. Okay, and also the concept of circular economy, you should know about that. Then also all the funding mechanisms. Okay, yes, the climate tipping points. This is also important. If not for prelims, you can use this for mains as well. Like whenever you're writing the main, this can justify your answer. Like why should we conserve the biodiversity, or why should we reduce the impact of why should we curb the temperature rise and like reduce it, like keep it below 1.5 degrees to 2 degrees Celsius. So you must remember all the climate tipping points. Okay, you can use it for your mains answers. Okay, then the WMO and its reports also, all the reports by WMO, that is Greenhouse Gas Bulletin, State of World Climate, and State of Climate Services Report, Global Ocean Observing System. I think these were the important topics which we covered today. So with that, we will conclude. Okay, so please do remember that CBD is very important. Okay, and also all the other topics we will discuss today. Okay, thank you.